Alrighty, y'all. What's up? Welcome back to the show. Hope you're doing excellent. We're looking at what European things do people in other countries find weird. Now, it seems like every video at this point, I always have to put the disclaimer out there. I know something Europeans find weird is saying or grouping Europe as a whole all the time. So, as you know, you got to take this with a grain of salt. Many different regions, countries, cultures, practices within Europe. It changes. It could change literally every, couple hours on the road. Like, I realize that. But for the sake of this video, we got to use our imagination a little bit because there might be some things within that European region that are still a lot different from Asia, from the Americas, and so forth. This is from the infographic shows. It'll be linked in the description down below so you can watch the whole thing uninterrupted and definitely browse their channel.
Don't forget. We'll start with food. Now, depending on where you come from in Europe, eating habits change dramatically. If you visit places such as France, Italy, or Spain, you might find that food is much more than sustenance and meal times are quite a cultivated matter. In Italy, you could expect to take a 2-hour lunch, sometimes with wine, on a workday. Food matters.
Whoa.
In France or Spain, dinner might last all night, and again...
Oh my God, 2-hour lunch even during a workday in Italy? That sounds awesome. I had a lot of jobs where I used to... everyone used to complain, like, we only get 30 minutes for lunch, and that included you had to walk, use a restroom, and then go eat your lunch somewhere in a break area. It was like a mess. There was not enough time at all. I used to be like choking on my food, trying to get back to work in time. Obviously, thank goodness, 45 minutes to an hour is a little more common here, but 2 hours I've never heard of for lunch. That's pretty awesome.
Sometimes with wine on a workday. Food matters. In France or Spain, dinner might last all night, and again, wine is often there at the table.
I mean, the wine thing's cool too. It's not like you're getting, totally drunk, right? Even during the lunch hour and at dinner, wine is just a good complement to the meal.
Dinner is often sacrosanct, and it's a time for sharing and talking, and often many courses are served. For most visitors to these countries, if they end up being invited to a family dinner, they will often be pleasantly surprised by the sheer volume of treats and also the wonderful conviviality.
That's
awesome.
You
may also find that once you have made the acquaintance of some Europeans, they can be quite tactile, and for some people, get a little too close. While in some Southern European cultures you might find men, just friends, holding hands as they walk down the street, it's not uncommon in Italy, Portugal, France, or Russia for men to cheek kiss as a sign of friendship.
Yeah, that is totally different. And of course, there's no offense to be drawn here, but that is just so different. Yeah, American culture, of course you have friends and colleagues and all these different things, but, at most, if you're really comfortable with someone, two guys might do like a bro hug, right? Like real quick or whatever, but there's not going to be much physical touch other than, like I said, maybe a hug rarely or a fist bump or a high five. People in America, I could say from any background, any state, any region, generally like their space, right? You're not going to be real close to people all the time. It's just not how it works here. It's pretty funny seeing that difference.
You might have to be very close to that person, but once you've established a close bond, this is something you may have to get used to. After visiting France, you could be in England an hour later and try to kiss a man on his cheek there, and he may take offense.
Right.
One thing people might find peculiar about the English is their orderliness and sometimes utilitarian nature. In England, compared to the continent, people can be quite serious about things. This could be how much emphasis they put on an orderly queue, or even how much they espouse not making a fuss. Move over to the Netherlands, a country that has surprised many visitors time and again. One of the most shocking things to people is Amsterdam.
By the way, I've done videos that have done very well on this channel about the Dutch, about the Netherlands, and very interesting place. And I really have only scratched the surface, so I have a lot more to learn. That's why this channel is so much work that I'm trying to juggle like a million things at once. There is so much there that is definitely shocking for Americans. I have a lot to learn about there.
First with its rather open and diverse red light district, but perhaps more so because there are cafes you can go in and choose from quite a lengthy menu of marijuana. In most countries, you might find drugs and prostitution in rundown parts of town, but in Amsterdam these days, it is quite safe and also picturesque. Another thing you might find strange in the Netherlands is the amount of bicycles and how they crazily zip about. The Dutch respect their bikes, and drivers must respect them too. In the Netherlands, there's even a special way to open a car door so there is no way you will open it on someone passing by on a bicycle. This involves opening the door with the hand furthest away from the handle. Kudos to the Dutch for coming up with that. Some people call it the Dutch reach, and it's a lifesaver.
Wow.
If you are going to spend a significant amount of time in Europe, you might come across the most passionate
Let me see, I get it. So that means you would have to reach for it over your body so then you could look out and check. Is that how that works?
And sometimes scariest sports fans you'll ever see. While football hooliganism is sometimes said to be a British thing, most infamous in the 70s and 80s, it is widespread across Europe. People literally die for the game or their team. In Eastern European countries, such as Poland, the Czech Republic, Turkey, or Croatia, you'll find supporters with units that look more like special forces. In Italy, Spain, and the UK, supporters at once cry over the beautiful game and then later vent their anger by tearing apart of cities. You will find this in other parts of the world, such as countries in South America, but let's say if your average Canadian got caught up in this, they might find it rather peculiar. If you were to come across some hooligans in
obviously we have big sports culture in the U.S. and presumably Canada as well. But I feel like it's in a different way, right? People do really rally behind teams and trends and all these things. I really do think, I think this is something where South America, so not North America where I am, but South America and Europe definitely have this in common where they just get super unbelievably radiant and into their team, right? It's like this whole team culture. And they go all in on it. And that's what I've definitely heard. Looks pretty crazy for sure.
Run for it. You might find that you easily get lost. European cities are old and weren't designed using easy-to-navigate systems. You could say many cities in Asia are relatively new cities in terms of them being built up to modern standards, and most American cities were created in a block system. Wandering through alleyways in Rome, following those country roads in the Scottish countryside, or navigating the cobblestone streets of Dubrovnik is one of the highlights of any trip. But before GPS came about, getting lost was assured. Let's say you are lost, and you stop at a...
I'm trying to picture... Like, first of all, I feel like GPS, even in, I would say, our relatively mostly simple interstates and cities and ways to drive around the U.S., GPSs can still be messing up. I've had some crazy, I could do a whole video or podcast on like the crazy GPS stories we have had in all of our road trips. It is something else sometimes. I may or may not have been, literally directed onto like military bases and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I definitely don't want to be here. GPS is kind of sketchy sometimes. So I can only imagine, even in modern day, I wonder if is there any spots where GPS is kind of notorious for not being very accurate or being weird or glitching out or something. I imagine there's got to be some hot spots within some different countries in Europe where the GPS is just still sketchy. But regardless of that, before the GPS era, geez, I mean, I guess you would have had to grab an old paper map, right? An atlas. And that would have been something else if you are an American and you're going on a big family vacation and you're going throughout multiple countries in Europe. Oh, I don't know how they did it. That would be pretty intense, I feel like. Maybe like a recipe for disaster. You're in like a different country, different units. You don't know where anything is. Oh, man.
A local bar for a drink. One of the great things about some places in Europe is the homey feel of some of these old establishments. They might open till very late, or people in some parts of Europe may not even go out until 11 p.m. In more rural communities, you might still find people driving after a few drinks, and in most parts of Europe, you won't be blasted with AC while having to endure sports on 6 TVs. While you'll find American-style sports bars in Europe, one charming thing you'll still find is that the pub, the inn, the cafe will have a homely touch. You'll also find in Europe that a lot of young people get away with drinking. The age limit law in many European countries may not so assiduously be enforced by pub owners or police. If you are American, you'll also find that police in most of Europe are not so much in your face as they are in the States.
Yeah, that is so different than the U.S. The drinking thing, I know you guys always make jokes, which are totally valid about like, we can vote and go to war, but we can't drink, that kind of thing. Yeah, obviously, that the drinking age in the U.S. specifically is 21, and it is so strict. It is so strict. Obviously, people, teenagers and stuff can get away with it, but it's a little bit of a mission. Or, you can have house parties and, have underage drinking. And, most of the time you're not going to get caught unless someone like calls it in, of course. But I'd say for the most part, it doesn't happen very much. And there is just like no such thing as a loose drinking enforcement here. It's always tight gripped wherever you go. It's really strict.
They seem to be a nicer breed of cop. If you are young and want to party, head to Europe. Ironically, laws are laxer and there is, for the most part, less crime. You might need a drink to calm your nerves after you've experienced a day of watching nude people at the beach.
God.
Certainly in Spain and France, you'll find toplessness to be absolutely nothing out of the ordinary.
That's wild.
And we are not talking about nudist beaches. Go there a second time and you'll just get used to it, and maybe even throw caution to the wind and strip yourself. As most of you are English speakers watching,
that is, again, so different. I'm sorry to keep pausing, but these are getting into the really big differences that, like, Americans, I feel like, would find weird. I'm pretty sure, because I don't know for sure because I've never been to one. I'm pretty sure there are very few, but some, like, nudist beaches in the U.S. in certain places. I don't know where. And I don't know how common they are. I'm pretty sure they're not common. But yeah, unless you're at one of those, you're not going to find anyone topless or nude here. There are certain states where like women are allowed to be topless. I've seen that when I've looked up weird laws before about the U.S. states. But again, it's not really a thing even in those states, right? You're just not going to find people super comfortable with nudity in public. But at the same time, it's kind of funny because there's like a super over-sexualization in like music videos and shows and like even Instagram and social media, I guess, which is so funny. It's like, so you have that pushing the envelope, but then like actual just, body culture where people are topless at the beach and, lack of clothing isn't really a big deal like in other countries, but it is here. It's kind of confusing, right? It's just kind of weird. Our position is really weird on that, admittedly, whereas I've read in other countries it's common to be, topless or nude or whatever, and it's not really a big deal for the most part. People don't view it as like this super private, sexual thing. I don't know. That one is definitely different, though, for sure.
This or can understand English, we feel we must give you a word of warning if you visit the UK. That warning is, you might not understand people when they speak to you. You think you speak English and know what it sounds like,
right.
And then you find yourself asking someone in Liverpool where the Beatles Story Museum is. What you hear back sounds like a foreign language. Down a few pints of Guinness in Dublin and start to chat with a guy with a very broad accent and you'll be equally confused. The accent can change from town to town, so even if you fully understand the Mancunian, that's someone from Manchester, you might have problems following someone's gist on the wonderful and wild moors of Yorkshire, and you've only driven for 45 minutes.
That one is super fascinating, and I know this can go for multiple places within different countries, but I have to say within the UK, within Ireland, I've heard so many times that you can literally go like to a different town 30 minutes away and you're going to find slightly different like types of people. You're going to find different accents. That's what's very fascinating to me because, of course, that exists everywhere on a bigger scale. If I go 3 states away, it's going to be a way different culture, way different accents. But, I got to drive for a few hours, right? Whereas you can go literally 20, 30, 40 minutes in the UK, for example, and you're going to find just these totally different slang and different ways of talking. And when you think about it, it's all these on this super micro level. You get that many different experiences, so to say. That is very fascinating for sure. And it also could be overwhelming if you are a tourist traveling there and you think you know English and then you go to hear these different slangs and different accents of English and all of a sudden you're lost like it's a foreign language. I bet there's some pretty funny stories surrounding that topic. So that's about it for this one, though. That was really interesting. Definitely some differences, some European things that people, and I guess outside of Europe, you could argue, would find weird. Not all of them were straight up weird, just maybe different, of course. Like, the whole looser drinking thing, as long as people are careful and stuff. I don't find that weird. I find that pretty cool. Maybe I find more our drinking culture here a little more weird. Based on how strict it is, but I understand there's a danger with it too. So I understand the concern, but yeah, it's interesting to see these differences. So I hope to hear from you down in the comments. Do you agree with these? Any other weird differences that you think I as an American would find weird? Go ahead and let me know. Please throw a like on there if you did enjoy this. Subscribe to be part of this amazing community we do have here. With that being said, y'all, my name is Ian, who watched an IWrocker, and until next time, catch you later.